Are we rolling on everything?
Yes.
So I can start talking? Okay. I like your advice, by the way. If anything changes significantly, adjust accordingly. I think that's just good advice for life.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't shave this week, and I'm a little self-conscious
Let's
about
just adjust accordingly, and this will be the rugged edition of Polite Fight.
Okay, good. Well, welcome then to the rugged edition of Polite Fight. I'm John Tatey, here as always with Gus Bellman. Say hello, Gus. Oh, you're drinking. I'm sorry. We are going to talk about Bali Ha'i, this week's episode of Better Call Saul, of course. Do you know this song?
John, I don't know Bali Ha'i.
From South Pacific, Rodgers and Hammerstein, and I think it's a song that comes up a lot in pop culture because it's a song whose meaning you can understand without even listening to any of the words, although we do hear Jimmy sing it, of course. But just the melody gives you this sense of it's about this far off, well, not that far off, but this island that's visible on the horizon in the movie, and it's sort of played up as this supposed paradise.
I'm having trouble. Do you think if you could sing it a little bit? I'm just having a little trouble remembering it.
No, I don't think I can, Gus. Bali Ha'i may call you any night, any day. I love that. I think it's such a beautiful song. I love that it's this sort of uniting symbol for this episode because I think we have both Jimmy and Kim looking off in their distance of their own lives and seeing just some hazy island on the horizon where they think they belong. So I think the question is, what is the Bali Ha'i in this episode for Jimmy and for Kim? And we see Jimmy goes back to his old office in the back of the nail salon. And there's a suggestion, I think, that this independent life is his Bali Ha'i, to me driven home by this wonderful shot when Jimmy's pulling out of the parking lot to go to work of the day spa and nail sign, which has this beautiful looking island that
definitely
looks to me like Bali Ha'i.
Yeah, certainly.
Kim's Bali Ha'i, I think, is less clear. Maybe this offer from Schweikert and whatever the other name is. And I want to talk about the Moscow Mule that she drinks. It's fascinating the way that this symbol plays out because when we first see it, she says, that's so vintage. And Kim doesn't have one at that lunch with Schweikert, but then later she does have one when she's running this little con. And to me, it gives her the appearance of respectability, and she uses that to help her with this little game they play.
Well, it's interesting because when you see that, she's just walked out of HHM, and then you see that Moscow Mule, and your brain immediately says, like, she's getting a drink with the Schweikart and Copley guy.
Yes.
And then it turns out it's something very different, which really complicates your understanding of, I think, what she's going through at that moment. Another connection I made with the Moscow Mule after she calls up Jimmy and says, I've got a live one, is it's another fancy alcohol, which was, a major motif during their first con together, and so it really does symbolize
this fixation on the drink.
Right, it really does symbolize both, and because it sort of represents the Schweikart and Copley path, but also represents the Jimmy path, it works both ways at the same time and sort of really illustrates how confused she is in the way that it hits us because we get that same confusion that she's feeling.
Yes, the symbol does have that duality. Jimmy's the vodka and Schweikert is the ginger beer. Okay, next. Let's talk about the toothbrush. Do you want to talk about
the toothbrush is great. I had. There was a great comment.
Yeah, you didn't. Don't take credit for the commenters, Gus.
Jane says too, all one word, said, I love watching Kim brush her teeth knowing she was thinking of her and Jimmy's adorable toothbrush sharing shenanigans. It was a beautiful way of conveying a memory without a flashback.
That was such a potent evocation because then it brings your attention to what's different. It's just a nice little touch of filmmaking there. I am feeling a little bit like the show is almost bifurcated at this point with Jimmy and Kim on one side and Mike on the other side. And of course, they've been separate storylines before, but the feel of the show is different between these two storylines, and they're not connected in plot terms at all right now.
No, yeah, not at all. I have been sort of down on the Mike storyline for most of the first season, almost all the first season and most of this season.
Really? All the way back?
Yeah, but this episode, I actually was really enjoying being with Mike this episode, and I think it's because they were editing his sequences very similarly to what we saw 2 episodes ago, where you're sort of playing catch up with Mike. You're seeing him
Right.
do something and then you're filling in the blanks. You know, he goes to get the welcome sign and you're like, what's up with this? And then later you find out it's a way for him to like see whether anybody's been in the house.
Which is another classic Breaking Bad move.
Exactly,
right? It's
yeah,
like, what's he doing? And then you
see all the ingredients of
Right.
whatever the scheme is. Let's talk about the Salamanca cousins. I mean, wasn't this just like, I guess it was an effective moment, but it was just so over the top.
Now I wonder, I agree, but for me it caused me a moment's hesitation because it was like, hey, remember these guys from
yeah.
Breaking Bad? Here they are. And I think, it's not like the show is bad in those moments, but I just think those are actually its weakest beats. And it feels a little bit, as much as I hate this term, it feels a little bit like fan service to me.
Definitely. Well, so there's a comment from the review and then a comment on the comment, which I think work great together.
Okay.
We'll talk about what's wrong with this scene.
Okay.
So I actually can't tell how you would say this commenter name. It's
Inna then Ed for me.
For me. This commenter said, seeing the cousins on the roof nearby is intimidating, but imagining the logistics of them getting there, waiting for him to see them, and then running off the second they're out of eyesight is pretty funny.
I love it.
And then A Quiet Storm says, add to the list, the cousins position themselves on a roof perch exactly so to have a church loom behind them within Mike's line of sight.
They got a sense of drama.
Yeah. It just seemed like, and those characters were always dramatic, presented dramatically in Breaking Bad. They're sort of characterized by their skull shoes or whatever. But it still felt so cheesy. And Mike's acting in that moment was not very good, where he's sort of like, like it just like didn't quite work for me. I was like, okay, I understand what you wanted me to get from the scene, so I'm taking that into the rest of the episode, but it just did not land.
We've talked on the show about how deftly Better Call Saul uses its prequelness to its advantage, right? And I think this is one of the cases where it doesn't work as well, because when these guys showed up in Breaking Bad, they could be ominous and mysterious, and like they had a certain air to them because we didn't know what their deal was. We already know what's going on with these guys.
And we know that Mike is fine and in fact ends up killing one of them. Right. And that they don't kill Mike's granddaughter.
Right.
So it just, it's a little bit.
Can I go back to that scene though? Because there was something at the end of it. Now, this is what I would call a happy accident. The last shot of this scene, we have, Mike hugging his granddaughter, and then in the sky, there's the contrail of a plane, and to me, it looks like a projectile headed right for Mike, which I call this a happy accident. I feel like this is the kind of thing that they saw when they got it back in the edit bay, and it just adds an extra touch of Mike's in for it, and he's running out of time.
I mean, that would be a pretty easy thing to add as well. And for me at least, if I think plane that looks like it's heading towards the Earth plus pool, I immediately think of Breaking Bad season 2.
Yes.
So maybe it does. Maybe they added it in to give a little more resonance and to recall Breaking Bad to your mind as they reintroduce these two characters to you. Maybe I don't know, or maybe it's just an accident.
Maybe it's just a coincidence, but it's headed for the center of his skull. So it's just this great little detail at the end of it.
Let me address something that you brought up about the two stories feeling like they're bifurcating. It seems to me, right, Mike's agreed to take this gun charge. He's going to need a lawyer.
Oh,
and he's going to call up Jimmy. So I think that's what it's got to be.
Well done, Gus. Of course, of course. All right. Well, thank you for watching Polite Fight again this week. We'll be back next week, of course. For Gus Spellman, I'm John Tatey. Thanks for watching. So long for now.
Bye, guys.
You've reached Kim Wexler. Please leave a message.
Bali Ha'i may call you any night, any day. It may call you. Okay.